Well, we've got, again, a School of Law and Diplomacy. So let me turn to diplomacy because now we'd like to make an award to a diplomat of the United States of America. And this award is named after Edward Murrow, who, of course, was the iconic CBS newsman who rose to fame during the Second World War for his broadcasts from London. And he ended up donating his personal papers, his personal library here at the Fletcher School because he went on at the end of his life to be the first director of what was then the USIA, the United States Information Agency. So Fletcher likes to annually recognize a Foreign Service officer for excellence in the conduct of public diplomacy. And that's what we're going to do this year. Now, Edward Murrow, in commenting on this, said once that, this is a wonderful line, the crucial link in international relations is the last 3 feet. Think about that, the last 3 feet, which is bridged by personal contact, by one person talking to another. And nowhere is bridging those last 3 feet more important than in the world of diplomacy. It's a fabulous thought. Personal contact trumps everything, even in this marvelous age of social networks and mass media. So we've got someone on the stage with us today who has personified that last 3 feet, Aaron Snipe. Aaron has served his country as a diplomat, not just in Foggy Bottom in Washington, which has its own kind of danger and mystery, but Aaron has spent a fair amount of time, as we would say in the military, downrange. Aaron has spent a year in Iraq at a provincial reconstruction team. Very, very serious, dangerous, and important work. That's not the last 3 feet, that's the last 3 inches. That's real personal contact. That's skin in the game. Aaron has served as well in the Office of Iranian Affairs, on the cutting edge of public diplomacy as we attempt to find our way to a peaceful and a diplomatic resolution of the challenges we face between the United States and Iran. He's also served separately in Iraq at the American Embassy as a spokesperson and has developed a real expertise in public diplomacy, both in Iraq and again back at Foggy Bottom. He's just received his next assignment, which is very exciting. He'll be going, as I mentioned, to Japan. He's currently studying Japanese. He's 1 year into that. I completely commend the study of languages, particularly at a school, which, as Farah reminds us, you better have at least one other language if you want to graduate. Aaron's working hard on his Japanese. He also has a 2-year-old at home and another baby on the way. And that whole package is going to move to Japan for a 2nd year of language training. Today, he interacts constantly with CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya. He's honing his language skills. He has, throughout his career, demonstrated the ability to move in those last 3 feet, to create public diplomacy that changes the United States of America. Let me ask Aaron Snipe to step forward and receive the Edward Murrow Award. Join me in a big round of applause.
Thanks very much. If it's okay, I'm going to do this in English and not in Japanese. Dean Stavridis, members of the faculty, distinguished guests, and of course, the students and families of the graduating class of 2014, it is an honor to be amongst the Fletcher Mafia today, and I really am truly humbled by this recognition. I have many, many people to thank, but I'd really like to begin first with by thanking my wife Preya and Alexander, my son, who are not here today because we're on baby watch at home. So if a text message pops up and I run off the stage, you will know where I'm headed. They really have been my foundation in supporting my obsession with public diplomacy. My parents are also here today, and I want to thank them for their support. I was a kid who grew up in Arlington, or in Allington as I called it, long ago. It's quite a journey to have to come from Arlington, to go to Iraq, to Ethiopia, to Japan, to all over the Middle East, and to arrive here at Fletcher. It's been quite a journey so far. I'd also like to thank my many colleagues from the Department of State, many of whom are serving overseas, some in Washington, and a few of whom are here today. Thank you for your camaraderie and your support, both of which I know have helped us advance U.S. foreign policy objectives in some very difficult places around the world. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Secretaries of State Powell, Rice, Clinton, and Kerry. Now, lest it sound as if I'm being overly diplomatic or overtly bipartisan, I include all four because my time as a diplomat has spanned 4 Secretaries of State, these 4 secretaries. And it really has been an honor to serve under all 4 of them. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge perhaps the most important group in my career as a diplomat, and those are the Foreign Service nationals that I have had the distinct pleasure and privilege of working with for almost a decade, in places like Ramallah, in Baghdad, from Cairo to Muscat, the locally employed staff at our embassies overseas who work hand in hand with U.S. public diplomacy practitioners in the field are truly the backbone of our engagement overseas, and the great risks and sacrifices that they take and make each and every day on behalf of the United States really do help America bridge Murrow's proverbial last 3 feet. At last night's event, I had an opportunity to meet a number of students from your class, and I was both excited and heartened to hear about all that you've accomplished thus far and all of the things that you will accomplish in the future, some of them very entrepreneurial. Some of you will be joining the Department of State or the U.S. Agency for International Development or service to the United States in some other form or fashion. And when you finally arrive, I look forward to seeing you around the hallways of the department or in some interagency meeting where we'll work together to advance U.S. interests abroad. For the international students, some of whom will be returning to your own countries to become your nation's newest diplomats, senior military officers, development professionals, I applaud you for your commitment to public service, and I look forward to seeing you across the negotiating table one day in the future. For those of us who have studied the life and work of Edward R. Murrow, there is much of his legacy for us to consider. In my own career with the Department of State, I began pondering Murrow's examples on my very first day on the job more than a decade ago. So much so that in 2008, when I volunteered to serve as the public diplomacy officer on a State Department-led provincial reconstruction team in southern Iraq, I decided to join a public dialogue that Edward R. Murrow began more than half a century ago. This, I believe, a 5-minute CBS radio broadcast in the United States that ran from 1951 to 1955 and was broadcast to nearly 100 countries around the world, asked its listeners to put into a few short words what they believed. As I prepared to embark upon what would be the most difficult assignment of my career, I too sought to answer that all-important question Murrow asked of his listeners. What did I believe? What did I believe about our policy? What did I believe could be accomplished in Iraq? Did I even believe that public diplomacy in the middle of a war zone was a viable tool for U.S. foreign policy? In my own search for what I believed, about our efforts in Iraq, I became not just a student of foreign policy, but also a student of orienteering, of learning how to read my own moral compass so that I might always find and follow a path that honored my values as an individual and my oath as a public servant. After completing what was at times a very harrowing year downrange in Iraq, I volunteered to go back for a second time. And just before I left the comforts of my American life in July of 2010, I finally made time to sit down and pen my own This I Believe essay, which was published that year. So very briefly, today, I would like to share with you, in the great tradition started by Edward R. Murrow, what I believe. I am a United States diplomat, and I believe in diplomacy in tough places. Far away from the cocktail parties in cushy Western capitals that still represent the narrow stereotype of my chosen profession, American diplomacy is being practiced in the most difficult places and under the most challenging of circumstances. For this Windsor-knotted, pinstriped, wing-tipped American diplomat, and for my many intrepid colleagues of the United States Foreign Service serving around the world in places where there is no wine nor cheese, the practice of diplomacy in tough places has always been the rule rather than the exception. From Badgies to Bujumbura, from Juba to Muthanna, America's diplomats have consistently answered the call to serve on the front lines of diplomacy, representing the breadth and depth of America and all that she stands for. Without the camouflage of our uniformed military siblings, the slow and steady cadence of wingtips rather than boots on the ground continues to walk America's ideas closer to foreign audiences around the globe. Through veterinary support to rural farmers, technical assistance to local electoral commissions, and strengthening the voice of rural women through artistic expression, diplomacy gives America the opportunity to reach that sweet spot of engagement, what Edward R. Murrow called the last 3 feet. When earthquakes rumble, when tsunamis roar, when terrorism rages in places most Americans know only from headlines, the men and women of the Foreign Service are often tasked with being our nation's first responders. My last overseas diplomatic assignment, a year spent on a civilian-led provincial reconstruction team in Iraq's Deep South, taught me many things about diplomacy. Chief among them was this: in the toughest neighborhoods on earth, when the front lines of war begin to transform into the main streets of peace and stability, diplomacy must be first on the scene. It is neither convenient nor is it always safe to practice diplomacy in such places, but it is absolutely necessary if America is to engage the world. As I head back to Iraq for another year of diplomatic service in a few short days, I count myself fortunate to be among the many wingtips on the ground who represent America and practice diplomacy in tough places. I wish you all the very best of luck. Godspeed to you.
Very, very well said. Well, we now come to a point in the program that I think we all enjoy wonderfully, especially our terrific faculty, which is to recognize and reward the students who are the very best in their class in terms of their academic achievement, their service to the school, their participation in the activities of the school. And we have a couple of prizes that we like to give out every year at this time. The first of which is called the Robert B. Stewart Prize, which honors a previous dean of the Fletcher School. And it's awarded every year to the student who at the end of the first year of studies best exemplifies the academic, the service, the extracurricular excellence of the student body. And in that sense, the students who receive these awards really represent their classmates, because it is very tough to select among a student body like this. And I will tell you that the faculty came together a couple of days ago, and we looked at grade point averages and academics and participation in activities. The top students were straight A students. It is an unbelievably tough choice. This year, the co-winners of the Stewart Prize are Caleb Ziolkowski and Anna McCallie. Hi, Anna. And of course, Anna receives her award, but Caleb, being a typical Fletcher end of the year, has already launched to East Asia, where he's doing independent research this summer. So he joins Anna in representing this wonderful group of first-year students, who most of whom will now move on to the second year. Well, speaking of second years, the next prize, as long as you learn your languages, the next prize is named after another former dean named Edmund Gullion. Some here in the audience, some who are more senior, such as myself, actually can recall Dean Gullion walking around this campus. He was an American diplomat as well, and I think he would have loved to hear the wonderful remarks that we just heard from Aaron. This award, named in his honor, is to a student who at the end of the second year exemplifies, again, academic achievement, the participation in the activities of the school, and the extracurricular activities that we feel really make up a fundamental part of the class. So, again, a long debate amongst a very, very passionate faculty, some very strong candidates. The winner this year of the Edmund Gullion Prize is Kate Fedosova. That is a big deal. Again, Kate, well done. And Kate, of course, comes out of our business and economics side, particularly in our business world. Another big part of our school, a very fundamental part captured in our name, the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, is international law. And the next prize is named after Leo Gross. Now, when I showed up here in the early 1980s, Professor Gross was still here. He was quite senior at that point. He was a towering figure. He had written extensively about every aspect of international law, and my own field was law of the sea. And so I would go with great trepidation to chat with Professor Gross, who was in one of these classic academic offices with papers and books. He personified brilliance and depth of knowledge and superb research. He was what we want a faculty to be, at the heart of not only the academic world, but also having real impact. So Leo Gross is therefore the name of the prize we give every year for those who excel in international law. And frankly, I would put our international law faculty up against any other law school's faculty in the country in terms of international law. We have truly brilliant international lawyers, and among them is our academic dean, Ian Johnstone. And I would like to ask Dean Johnstone to step up and award the Gross Prize.
Okay, thank you. 8 months ago, we met in the ASEAN Auditorium to celebrate Convocation, which is the beginning of the academic year. And one of the many pleasant tasks that takes place on that day is the award of the Alfred B. Rubin Prize to the student who demonstrated excellence in international law in their first year at the law school. Back then, the field was narrowed down to 3 students, and after strenuous deliberations, the law faculty decided to grant the award to all 3. Well, earlier this week, we had to go through the same exercise, choosing a graduating student who excelled in law-related courses. Sure enough, the same 3 students rose to the top. All 3 took 8 or more Fletcher law courses from 5 or more professors and received straight A grades. All 3 took courses at Harvard Law School, where they excelled. All 3 wrote theses of publishable quality. And all 3 made superb contributions to the school outside of the classroom. Try as we might, we simply could not put one above the others. And so, for the second time in 8 months, it's my great pleasure to ask Julia Brooks, Amy Tan, and Luca Urek to come forward to receive the Leo Gross Prize.
Thanks, Ian. Well done. Let me get this microphone back down to a normal person's height. There we go. Our final prize goes to the best PhD, the best academic doctoral presentation. And this is named after one of our truly distinguished alumni, Dr. Peter Ackerman. It's the Ackerman Prize. And it reflects an award that engenders scholarship, a seriousness of purpose, a dedication to the world of learning, and it's given annually to the top PhD student. This year, I'm very pleased to announce that the winner of the Dr. Peter Ackerman Award is Daniel Reifschneider. Daniel, please join us up here. I know you're all wondering, what did Daniel write about? And I'm going to tell you, because I think it's a fascinating topic. His dissertation is entitled, Achieving a Domestic Consensus on Global Climate Change in the United States, sine qua non to an effective global response, ? So if you want to know the answer to that question, I think it's yes, that we better get a domestic consensus here if we're going to have impact globally. In that sense, I think your dissertation is part of this wonderful transmission belt that runs from the world of academia to the world of policy. PhDs are special. Well done, Daniel. All right. Now, we have a tradition that each year the graduating class presents a gift to the Fletcher School. And so I would like to now ask the chairman of the board, Dr. Rick Thoman, to come up and receive from the class leaders who have worked on this donation, this award. And it's from Juanita Love Davis and Annika Van Dyke. Please join us up here to make this presentation. I think you're going to want to go right over here. Over here.
spring, members of the graduating class commemorate their time spent here and mark their entrance into the world of Fletcher alumni by supporting the Fletcher Fund with a class gift. The class of 2014 is pleased to be able to carry on this rich tradition.
This year we had a bit of a friendly competition. I'm sure my classmates all know how competitive I am. So among the different programs, the LLMs took the top spot with 83% participation. The MIBs came along in second place with 82% participation. The MALDs and the MAs, we tied with 61% participation. And the Mahas pulled up the rear with a still impressive 25% participation. In total, 82% of our class raised $6,400 for scholarship aid. And this aid, this aid will be used to support students during their first year of study at the Fletcher School. So on behalf of the Fletcher class of 2014, it is our honor to present Dean Stavridis and the chairman of the board with this gift.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Anita. Great job. All right, very nice.